Yeah, and we did a bit of work with dog pose, and I'd sort of like to go back to that, kind of revisit it, and maybe add some other things to it. So, if you remember, we started with the breathing with the belt, and like that. So, I'll get my belt, wherever it is. Which seems to have disappeared. Okay, have a seat. So, Sarah, you made it. And just in the nick of time, because I'm just about to mute you. It's too nice. We might be hearing doggies, etc., which is all right too. Okay. All right, so here we go. And if you remember what we did with this the other day, is that you breathe out and you just pull a little bit on the ends, and your exhaling breath, drawing back the navel. But then when you inhale, and just naturally it fills your lungs and the diaphragm relaxes out. And it's just a little pull in, exhaling, and then a release and a softening. Never goes astray to think about the pelvic floor lifting, and then never goes astray to remind yourself to relax your shoulders. And the breath in, and the breath out, where you begin to think of the breath as being in a circumference, and not where we often experience it just in the front of your body. So let's just do one more breath like that, a full breath in, and full breath out. And then I like to follow this awareness exercise. It's not really pranayama, it's just a breathing exercise, just by bringing your hands onto your back ribs and feeling where the ribs protect our kidneys, and doing a little bit more with breathing into the back ribs. And your body's kind of like a sponge that loves an inhaling breath that helps energize you. So soaking up that inhalation and then just releasing it. One more breath. And then letting it go. And in this breath-centered way that we're starting off, we're going to do a simple arm stretch, overhead arm stretch, where we start the inhalation without moving, a little inhalation, and then start the movement, raising the arms. And then coming to a halt and still breathing in just a little bit more, and starting the exhalation and lowering the arms. The arms rest, the exhalation finishes, and that same kind of drawing back through the abdomen. So sort of catching yourself in the act of predicting the movement, but then making the breath frame that movement just slows you down and calms you down, I find. Inhaling. A little more puff of breath in at the top, and exhaling. That last little bit of exhalation tones the abdominal area. And one more breath like that. Lovely. And let's continue on on the mat in a lying down face up position. I don't know why I say lying down face up, lying on your back face up. That's pretty obvious. All right, and then let's do these nice movements of the pelvis and the knees and legs. If you hold at the front of your knees and circle round, something about having a hold of your knees or holding your legs, a little bit more weight through the back body, the sacrum. Going the other way. And then pausing. And you can try this on and see if it suits your back, if it suits you as a movement. And without your hands holding, continue what you were doing. When I do this, I have to engage a little bit more abdominal pressure, just to keep from tipping side to side. So more of your core is engaged. And then going the other way. And then pausing in the center. Bring your hands back onto your knees if you had your arms by your side, and separate your knees. And then let's do them individually, circling the knees out. So good for the hip movement. And then circling the knees in the opposite way. And then just still with your knees a little bit apart and stopping there, circle your feet. So far we've kind of awakened the feet doing this now, and your knees and your hips. Maybe a little more soothing for your lower back. Good, and then bring your legs all the way together and knees and feet together. Draw your knees away from you as you straighten your arms. Bring your knees in as you breathe out. Inhaling, knees away. Exhaling, knees in. It's an opportunity for you to engage more of your abdominal muscles. But it can be putting your back into that sort of rounding shape at the base of your spine. So as you go through these really simple movements, see if you can keep moving your sitting bones towards the floor. So even when the knees come in, pressing down through the sitting bones. And I notice more engagement through my leg muscles, but also that my lumbar arch, I can keep more of the natural arch there. Keep your chest and shoulder muscles relaxed. Okay, good. And then bring your feet onto the floor. And in this warm-up, so that it's a little bit more complete, we're going to do some bridge poses and also some rotations for your spine. So starting from both feet on the floor and knees hip width apart, turn your palms over so you can press your palms, press your arms into the floor, and then gradually lift your hips off the floor and come into a small arch as you're turning your arms out, palms upwards, and turning your shoulders out. I've gone right into clenching my buttocks, so I'm going to release that, and then exhaling, coming down, and turning your hands back down. So a little more opening this way as you come up again into your full bridge, and you can open the top of your chest at the same time. Back to the ground and palms down and resting. Let's change this a little bit so that there's more potential for opening the top front chest. So when you come up into your back arch, press your feet, tuck under, and bring your arms overhead. And when your arms are straight back beyond your head, pause, keep your arms there, move your tailbone away from you as you start to bring your buttocks back down to the ground. So your arms are still stretched overhead and you're resting the buttocks again. And then hips up, buttocks up, lifting high. And then this time bring your arms back down at the same time as you lower your buttocks. Good. Let's do that all over again. Inhale, lifting up. Take a breath or two when your arms are overhead. Release any tightness around your tailbone. And then as you're coming down again, your arms stay back overhead. Move your buttocks, move your tailbone away from the rest of your spine, just for that extra stretch. Inhale, come up again. Feel the hamstrings engage as well as the buttock muscles. And then lower down and arms back down by your side and resting. Just take a couple of breaths, consolidate, and then arms away from the sides of your body. Drop your knees to the right. Rotate your head, look towards the left. Back into center. Knees to the left. Allowing your head to look to the right comfortably. And let's go back and forth. Think of that as a really easy, you're not trying to do anything fancy here, just rotating through the hips and the lower back. Next time your knees come to the right, wait there, and then let's make this a little bit, move up the spine closer to your mid-back and your upper back. Extend your left arm overhead, knees are to the right, then press your left foot into the floor and lift that left side slightly. Lift your left buttock. Reverse, and then left arm comes down, right arm overhead. Press your right foot down, lift your right buttock a little, extend the whole right side of your body. All right, and then bringing that right arm back down. We're going to complete the rotations there and come up to standing. Lovely. Well, maybe not all the way standing. Let's take halfway standing in cat pose. In other words, kneeling. So on your hands, on your knees, and not even staying there in cat pose, swing your feet together, bring your buttocks back to your heels, and child's pose with your arms extended. Inhale, come back up. Cat pose, open your chest forward. Exhale, fold back. And could you adopt that breathing pattern so that before you come up into cat pose, you start your breathing? And then in the pose, still breathing. And then the movement stops and a little bit more breath in. And then exhaling, coming back slowly. The movement starts back to child's pose. The movement completes, your buttocks are down, and the breath completes with a little bit more exhalation. All right, we're going to move really slowly in this manner, but that's all right. Make the breath the main game. And for me, it makes me consider what I'm doing more. It builds more awareness into what I'm doing. And probably a little bit more capacity to my breath. Next time we move into cat pose, we'll use it as a platform to come into downward facing dog pose. So when you're there and you're ready to move, then tuck your toes under and come on up and pedal your feet. Walk the dog. Good. And then a static position. Well, it's never really static, is it? You can feel your breath through your diaphragm at the front. Maybe that's circumferential breathing where you feel the breath at your back ribs and your side ribs. And then getting that extra bit of lower leg stretch down through your heels. Beautiful. And then take a walk in and inhale and come up. Nice and easy does it. Lovely. So I hope you enjoyed those wall stretches the other day. So come and repeat them. Take a position where you're standing and facing the wall. And you're in pretty cozy to the wall. Little distance between your toes and the skirting board. And then bring your right arm up overhead. As soon as I do that, I start to engage my left shoulder. I'm going to relax that left shoulder. And then open your hand and press into the print of your hand. And even see if you can draw your hand down towards your shoulder. So there's quite a lot of strength building into this around those upper arm muscles. Okay, and we're going to move on to take your hand from 12 o'clock position and on the dial out to about 1:30. And press your hand. Keep your elbow a little bit flexed. We don't want any hyperextension there. And you're pulling your hand back towards your shoulder. Good. Let's go one more step and bringing the hand down to place it at 3 o'clock position. And now let's add a rotation. So turning your feet to the left side away from your hand and then turning your head. And at the same time pressing into the wall, drawing your hand back towards your shoulder. Release that left shoulder if it's being recruited. Good. And you're still breathing evenly. Good. And then you could do a turnaround from the wall, facing outwards again, and just take a break there and feel your right arm. You might, in the camera, be able to see that your right arm is a little bit longer than your left arm. Good. Let's start all over again and facing in and left arm overhead. And feel the pressure on your handprint and the drawing it down towards your left shoulder. Relax your right shoulder. Keep the heat on the pressure on your hand, and your left elbow is just a little bit crooked. Good. Open that out to 11:30 on the clock dial, anti-clockwise, pressing your hand, toning the upper arm muscles, the collection of them, biceps, triceps, deltoid. Good, let's move on, and then placing your hand out at 9 o'clock, and then let's do the rotation and turning towards the right side, any amount. If it starts to be uncomfortable in your elbow joint, make sure that you're crooking it again, a little bend there. And then looking out in that direction to the right side, pressing your hand, drawing it towards you. Okay, good. And then releasing that arm down, and then feel left arm. What does that feel like? All right, give your arms and your hands a bit of a shake out, and let's move away from the wall, and we'll test what we've done against our dog pose. So come down, kneeling position first. I really like to approach my dog poses like this. So from cat pose, just lifting up my upper spine towards the ceiling. Tuck the toes under, and then lift your upper back, lift your buttocks, lift your knees. And get a sense of how your arms feel. Keep that handprint even from your little finger to your thumb mound. And then stretch, as you did at the wall, from your wrists back into your shoulders. Duck your head down. Bring your chin into the jugular notch. Switch your gaze to look towards your torso if you can. Good. And then take a walk in and inhale and come up. And all the way to standing. All right, let's do a little bit more work on those calf muscles. Grab your block. So you're going to step your right foot up onto the block where the ball of your foot and your toes are up on the block. And then take a step forward so that your feet are parallel. Your toes would be in one line. Good. So when you're standing like this, adopt a posture that's upright. It's very easy to get kind of like an old person hunch here. So come out of that by lifting your breastplate and stretching up. Oh, I'm losing my voice. Stretching up through the front of your hips. If you're very brave or you want to be challenged a little bit more, you could nudge your left foot a little further forward without any hunching. Swap it over. Now, in consideration of an old ankle injury, you might have had this on the first side, then I'm just going to have my right foot back a little bit. Otherwise it feels quite torturous. So always adapting according to your body's needs. And then from that position, stretching up from the front of your hips, chest nice and high, arms relaxed. Okay, and then if you want, take that extra step forward. Not me. All right, and then come off your block. And let's do a front ankle stretch, not to leave the other part of your foot out of the equation. So from standing on 2 feet, step your right foot back and then bring the top of your foot onto the floor. When you've done that, that's going to be your toenails, your toes onto the floor, and your right leg straight as you can. Straighter you make that right leg, the more hip extension you're going to get. That's quite a lovely movement. All right, other leg. All right. Notice the difference between the two. This one's taking a little more work for me. And then straightening the leg as much as you can. And release. Good. And then shake out those faithful feet, your beautiful feet. You might feel like you have mud on them. If you've been outside at all, you might have mud on them. It's very rainy and muddy here. Okay, and then let's do something for your wrists. Take your kneeling position in cat pose. So we're putting all these elements together for a much more interesting dog pose. So there's your normal hand position, your hands underneath your elbows and your shoulders. Now see how you go to turn your hands out. So your wrists are facing each other and your fingers are pointing out. I'm going to keep my elbows a little bit flexed here to not hyperextend. And then see if that's working for you. Same thing as your ankles. Sometimes you have, like a wrist sprain or wrist break. Just be really gentle and go easy if this is uncomfortable for you. Then let's reverse it and turn the hands in, fingers in. Definitely have to keep your elbows bent for this one, but that's fine. And if you can, lightweight, or you can bend your elbows more if that's too strong on your wrists. All right, and the very last one, I'm going to be very careful for myself here with, like older hands. I'm going to turn my hands back so my fingers are pointing towards my knees. And you can do that to any extent that you want. So your wrists are lifted if that's too strong on your wrists, or you might be able to bring them down. All right, and then kneeling up and shake out those wrists. I'm really interested in how that went for you. And then let's put those elements together in downward facing dog pose, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Hands placed, tuck your toes under, exhale, come up into your dog pose. Keep your weight predominantly on the backs of your knuckles, or even on the base of your knuckles rather than on your wrists. You might get to practice imagining lifting your wrists off the floor, so a light weight on there. And then looking back at your feet, see if you can bring a little bit more weight into your heels as you stretch back.
All right, and then take a walk in and inhale and come up to standing.
All right, we're probably going to do about 2 more dog poses, and there is one more series that I'd like to do to that end. So grab your block. This is a movement that I learned from a friend of mine, um, Maria Kirsten, and she seemed to be quite deft in doing it. I'm still learning it. So take your block and rest your block onto your right palm. And you're going to take the block out to the side and then bring it up and around. You have to do a forward bend until you come back and the block is in front of you. I managed to do that. I can't even describe how I did it. I just did it. So your block, you're going to lift it up and overhead, and in a big sweeping movement, bring it around back behind you. And you're working with the dorsal thoracic. How's that going? Nobody's dropped it yet. That's good. And then overhead, around. Have to bend forward and back to start. Okay. How about one more time? I hope you're enjoying this movement, that it's not feeling torturous. Voila. Okay, let's see what the other side's like. So what I'm doing is I'm just keeping the block on the flat of my hand without holding it, so as not to drop it. So extending that arm out, bringing the block up and overhead. There goes my perfect record. Okay. So maybe one side is easier than the other. How are you going? I can't hear you. All right, one more go at it. All right, so that's all for your shoulder flexibility in dog pose. Let's try that preface to the next dog pose. Come into all fours. And be in the pose, downward facing dog pose. This time bend your knees. So just a slight bend behind your knees, and then stretch your shoulders. And draw the arms back into the shoulders. And feel the shoulder blades onto your upper back, and the outer shoulder blades onto your outer ribs. And then keeping that firming of your upper part of your back, bring your heels down and work on straightening your legs. Keep your hands strong on the base of the fingers, the base of the thumbs. Let's hold a little longer for your arm strength and feel into those wonderful muscles we strengthened, upper arm muscles. And then take a break. As you come down into child's pose, let's keep your arms forward, but bring your hands back a little bit and drop your elbows. And let all the effort go out of your back, your arms, your chest.
All right. And then easy matter just to stretch out on your mat and lie on your front side. Fold your arms and rest your head onto your hands. And just rock your hips side to side until your buttocks feel like they've loosened, your lower back loose. Then lift up your head and your chest. Bring your arms in a little bit closer to you're going to rest your weight onto your left forearm, and it's across your mat and underneath your collarbones. We're going to do a quadricep stretch on your right leg, on your right thigh. Bend your right knee in towards your right buttock. Now your head and chest are still elevated. Reach back your right hand and hold at the front of your ankle. Now here's where the stretch comes in. Press on the front of your right thigh. Press your thigh bone into the floor and feel that lengthening from your hip to your knee. Good. Let it go. Swap your arms over. Right arm is your supporting arm underneath your chest. And then bend your left leg in and reach round for the left ankle. Good. Once you've grasped it, then start to work the pose, pressing down the left thigh into the floor and lengthening the front of that thigh. Good. Let's swap back to the original side and we'll have one more round. Flex your right foot if you haven't done that before. And then press your thigh down. But even more, if you can, press the front of your right hip down. There's a little hollow in between the hip and the top of the thigh. Press down there. All right, and last side. Flex the left foot so the toes are down, the heels up, and then bring that pressure down through the left thigh bone, but also through the lower part of the hip. So between the lower hip and the thigh, there's a little hollow there. Press it down. All right, and then release there and let the legs rest. Come back to your starting position, and with your arms folded, rest your head onto your hands. Rock a little bit hip to hip again. Just shake it. And since you've done that nice work there, let's take it into the bow pose and bend both of your legs. With your head still down, reach back and hold the front of your ankles. Flex your feet. Keep your knees just slightly apart, not too far apart. And then see if you can lift your head, lift your chest into this small back bend. And then last of all, lifting your knees and your thighs. Looking out towards the horizon. Squeeze your shoulder blades. And then lower down. Release down. Back to resting position. Turn your head to the side or rest on your forehead. And it would be a perfect time to come into child's pose. Approach child's pose slowly because you've been in a back bend. And now we move into a forward bend. Just feel your buttocks softening down onto your heels. Feel like you've folded in like a piece of origami that's made a really beautiful shape, the child's pose shape. And then relax your lower back, relax your shoulders, let your shoulder blades broaden, let all the effort go out of your body. I think I promised one more dog pose, and it's actually a beautiful counter pose to what you've been doing. Take your time and Adho Mukha Svanasana. And let's put the pieces together. So feel that your arm stretch is there from your wrists to your shoulders. Feel the breath in the back ribs as well as the front ribs and side ribs. Tone your leg muscles, lift your kneecaps. And finally, can you lift your sitting bones up? Sometimes if you come up onto your tippy toes again, bend your knees slightly, find the sitting bones, draw them upwards towards the ceiling, and then keep them up as you lower your heels. All right, and then let's exit, walk forward, and slowly come up. Okay, good work. And do you have a chair handy? Bring it onto your mat. And step right foot forward and left foot back facing your chair. Your right foot's not quite up to where the chair legs are, just a little bit back. And Parsvottanasana, square your hips and keep the back leg strong. Come into a halfway forward bend and draw the top of the right hip back. Reach out and let your hands rest lightly onto the seat of the chair. And from there, make another adjustment and move your hips back. Think about that movement coming from the topmost thigh, where you're moving the sitting bones back. And then bring your hands a little further forward towards the back of the chair. Keep your chest lifted and move from the sternum as though you wanted to lengthen the sternum from the top to the bottom. Now, as you're so far forward, you might want to fold your arms and rest your head down onto your arms or even the seat of the chair. All right, and then to come out of the pose, bend your right knee, press into your right heel. You can use your hands to help you come up, or just press your feet strongly and inhale and come up to standing. Step left foot to right, right foot back. You're not at a great distance, you're only a meter or less apart. Then adjust the two hip bones so they're level as well as straight forward, and then begin your movement coming into your forward bend. And approaching it slowly, To readjust the squareness of the hips, right hip forward, left hip back. And coming down onto the head resting position as much as you're ready to, or your head resting on the seat of the chair. And then tone your thigh muscles, pull up your kneecaps, move your sitting bones back and up. Good. And then to release, press your left foot print, bend your left knee a little bit, inhale and come up. And left foot forward, right foot back. And let's have one more round. And I've warmed up my leg muscles, and hopefully you have too. And you might complete the pose coming down and your hands to the floor without using the chair this time. Or by all means use the chair if that was helpful for you in approaching the forward bend. So taking it quietly to do your, it's basically a hamstring stretch, a forward bend over your right leg, releasing your head, releasing your neck. Working towards straightening your legs, but also still on the front leg, lifting your sitting bone. All right, press your footprint, bend the front knee, inhale and come up. And change legs for the last round. And taking it quietly, drawing the hips back as you come forward, both hips in the same plane and square. Keep that front leg knee bent a little bit if that takes the pressure off the knee and the hamstrings. And then if you choose that, you can work into it a little bit more by lifting the knee, lifting the quadricep. In a way, this is like a single leg dog pose. If you work the back of the left thigh, lift that sitting bone up towards the buttock. All right, and then exit from the pose gently, press your footprint, bend the front knee, inhale and come up to standing. Right foot to left. Okay, very nice work. And then let's take the chair out of the equation, put it to the side, and just take Uttanasana, resting position. Fold your arms, holding your elbows, arms up overhead, and then flex your knees as you come down and release your trunk down. So your arms, they're folded, your hands rest into the crease of your elbows. Then locate those sitting bones again. And what will help with that is if you lean into the forefoot, the front of your foot, and lift up through the backs of your legs. Finally, if you notice that you've neglected the breathing for a little while when I haven't mentioned it, breathe into, it's easy to breathe into the back ribs here. Feel the breath in the front diaphragm, in the side ribs as well. Good. Dangle your arms, drop them, bend your knees, unfold to standing. Good. And then take a lying down position with a block. and lying on your back. And bring the block underneath your sacrum. Bend your knees, bring your knees over your hips. I like to kind of keep playing with the block to find the best place for it. Even though it's not a big area, there's a part of my sacrum where I feel like I'm best supported. So take your time with that. And then extend up your legs. And your arms just loose by your side. So you're just giving yourself the time to do an inversion here with your legs extended up, your back well supported. Not completely relaxing because it takes some muscle effort to keep the legs extended up. Flex your feet and have a look at your feet and make the soles of the feet parallel with the ceiling. So if you had a block on each foot, you'd be able to feel the whole surface of your foot pressing up against each block. And then put a little more effort into lifting your heels to get that back leg stretch. Let's take the effort out of the equation. Bend your legs and drop your heels to your buttocks. And then bring your hands around to the backs of your knees, backs of your thighs, and allow the knees to come towards your chest. Relax your shoulders. And then let's stay in this upside down, I don't know, what is it? Like a squat on your back. With your hands on the front of your knees. Feel what that feels like when you draw your thighs closer to your chest. And then find your sitting bones again. And move your sitting bones down towards the floor, just to eliminate some of that rounding in your lower back. And we're going to finish today's practice shortly with another rotation. So come off your block and leave it to the side, and then extend out the left leg along the floor and tuck your right foot underneath your left knee. We're going to do a twist to the left side. Leave your arms away from you, out from your shoulders, and then take your right knee over to the left side. And allow yourself to look right if that feels like a nice neck movement. And let's stay with that left leg being straight. Bring that right knee back up. And do that all over again. Right knee towards the floor on the left side, looking to the right. Back up. Third time. Keep lengthening the left leg and keep that nice and straight as you look right. And then swap legs. And then wedging your left foot underneath your right knee, dropping and rolling over to the right side, dropping the left knee towards the floor. Back up. And repeating.
This is another one of the rotations that can come up neatly into the upper part of your back. And one last time. All right. And then left leg straight, right leg bent, right foot toes underneath the back of your left knee. Take your right knee to the right side, and this time bend your left elbow and place your right knee as a weight onto the outside of your right knee. And draw it closer to the floor if that feels good. And extend your right arm overhead. Open up the whole right side lung, right side rib cage. And let's go one more round in the rotation, and right leg straight, left knee underneath the knee, and left foot underneath your right knee, and then tip it over. Right hand, left knee, left arm overhead, stretch away. Just think about creating space, maybe not so much working the pose. How much space can you create for the lung? And then back to center, 2 feet on the floor, and give yourself a hug. Fold your knees in, wrap your hands around your knees, rock a little bit side to side. And then lay yourself out for the yoga relaxation. Any cushion or folded blanket for your head. A bolster underneath the backs of your knees, or your legs, knees up in constructive rest position. And then eye covering, if that gives you more sense of relaxation and comfort. And then fold your arms so that your hands are resting onto your diaphragm ribs. And send the message to relax the upper ribs, the upper part of your abdomen. And then bring the hands down. So one hand is below your navel and one hand just above your navel. And send the message through your hands, through that sensitive sense of touch, to relax your abdominal muscles. Relax the 2 sides of your navel. And let the abdomen just hang back like a soft sling of a hammock. And then let your arms drop out to the side. And go on, lengthen them from shoulders to wrists. Lift your back chest a fraction off the floor, and then let it rest down again. Extend your legs out, or keep your legs bent or resting onto a bolster. But wherever you've placed them now, soften the arches of your feet, the inside of your knees, the inner thighs, and that sort of hollow between the top of your thigh on the inside and the lower pelvis, sort of the inner groins. Feel them empty. Release any
residual tension between your shoulder blades. And then focus for a moment on a few of your facial features. Your eyes, when they drop back into their individual sockets, it releases pressure from the eyelids. So the eyelids are like a softly drawn down shade. And the eyes themselves floating. No tension. Relax the corners of your nose and feel your breath as it enters and leaves your nostrils. Just over your top lip. Very soft. Relax the lips themselves. You could moisten them and let them rest gently against each other. And then relax the internal mouth. Swallow lightly. And releasing any tension from the lining of your throat. Allow your eyes to turn down and to look down into your center chest. You may feel your breath there, and let that be your focus. And on every exhalation, allowing the mind to sink down and to be drawn down into the heart center. The mind and all thoughts, emotions, coming to rest in that opening of your own heart. Now, as a gentle way to resurface, first bend your elbows again and bring your hands back to the navel center and feel your soft breath there. Bring your hands up a little further and let your hands rest onto the diaphragm. And feel into your gentle breathing there. And finally, bring your hands or your fingertips up to the heart center. And feel the receptivity of the heart, maybe the awakened heart from your practice. And then coming up slowly through rolling to one side first. Take your time. I like to remind myself that the practice isn't just for me. It's for my wholeness, like my mind and my breath and my body and my emotions and my heart, but also so that I can engage with you and with the wider world. That's what my practice is for. Namaste.